My name is John Rogers. I work at Ecommerce and I manage agency partner relationships there across America. Have a team of CAMs. Many of you work with me. Many of you don't. I would love to meet everybody here this afternoon at the after party. We have a big afternoon for you guys today. So we have a workshop with Lauren Spence and Evan Perkins from the Ecommerce team. They're going to be in the horseshoe. So if you're here, you should be in the horseshoe for that workshop. As well, the Rewind workshop with Roddy Smith, that's going to be in the horseshoe as well. We have an agency panel around growth, power of partnerships, profit, and two on profitability today. Again, Lauren and Roddy's workshops are going to be back in the horseshoe. So before we begin, Debbie, this is for you. Dad joke 101. Yes. Got you. What did the Italian chef, pardon me, as I was, how did the Italian chef get locked out of his house? He had gnocchi. And with that, I'm going to introduce the next panel coming up. We have Kevin from Grow, Katherin from Tomorrow, Dave from Hawke Media, Tiara from Coldsmoke, and Mark from Netalico. Thank you.
Hey. Applause. All right. We good to go? Good afternoon, everyone. You're very welcome. And the room's already, it's now 3 times busier than I thought it would be for a panel session about process just after lunch. And again, just before we start today, can we give Rachel at the back of the room a massive round of applause for putting the event together today? She's actually won a prize for being the second most Irish person at the conference. I will
rest me to the day.
No violence, okay? Yeah, okay, sorry, I'm in trouble with Rachel again. Anyway, I'm Kev. I run what was a small digital agency called Grow Consultancy, based in Belfast in Northern Ireland. We were a 5-person agency, did a lot of B2B type work. We're a HubSpot partner. And I had a crazy idea. We were doing a little bit of e-commerce work, and I was actually involved in an e-commerce business that we closed in 2018. I kind of thought, right, what are we going to do here to generate leads for my consultancy business? And we started to, we're doing a little bit of work in Klaviyo, a little bit of work in Shopify, but primarily we were heavy in HubSpot and B2B. And I decided to set up an e-commerce conference in 2019 and had great momentum in 2019. COVID hit, we couldn't really do anything from an in-person event perspective. But Ecom Live in Belfast, which happened in April this year, is now Ireland's biggest e-commerce conference. We had about 400 people in Belfast this year. We run the Irish e-commerce awards. We run meetups all across the UK and Ireland. Very retailer focused. We run CEO forums where we bring in CEOs, sort of e-commerce entrepreneurs, invitation only, and run closed door kind of workshops for those guys as well. So if you're interested in bringing your brand, your people to Belfast, everything we do is very experiential. We do Game of Thrones studio tours, Titanic whiskey. We have a full 2-day conference, so it's a really good event. So if you'd like to come across at any point, we'd love to have you as our guest. And Rachel's been fantastic in helping us with the conference as well. She was a judge at the awards last year. And it was across, she chaired our Women in E-commerce panel and a couple of panels for us this year as well. So we'd love to see you in Belfast. I'm going to shut up for a few minutes now and hand you over to the panel who are going to introduce themselves. And guys and girls, if you could just tell everyone who you are, where you're based, and the sort of size of your organization as well, just to put that in context when we talk about process.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Katherin Bednarz, and I am a Director of Product Management at Tomorrow. We are an e-commerce agency that works with enterprise-level clients in Shopify ecosystem specifically. And yeah, that's about me.
Great. I'm Dave Bunce. I'm with Hawke Media. We're an outsourced CMO and full-service digital marketing agency based in Santa Monica, and we're currently sitting at about 200 people.
Hi, I'm Tiara Tragas. I'm Director of Operations at a Shopify agency, Shopify Plus partner called Coldsmoke. Specialize in what Kev would call glue girl, holding the operation together.
We're going to talk about that later.
With a specialization in finance, everyone's favorite.
I'm Mark Lewis, the founder of Netalico Commerce. I started about 10 years ago as more of a freelancer, and eventually grew it up into an agency. And we're about 15 people specializing in Shopify, Magento, and BigCommerce.
Very good. Very talented bunch, and a very handsome bunch as well, I think you'd agree. So, right then, let's get into talking about process. So, as an entrepreneur, I hate process, right? Because I'm like a bomb going off in the corner of the room. You know, I'm creative, I come up with these ideas, and I just want to get done. As a business owner, I actually love process, right? Because my team come in behind me, and they kind of fix things and put structure in things, which is really, really important. And Michael and I were talking just before the panel session today, Michael from DataShips, and he described himself, and this applies to me too, as the chief chaos officer in my business, right? That's my role. So, but process is really, really important, right? Because as I said, even in my business, you know, getting process in place to kind of make things happen, to make sure compliance is happening, clients are happy, we run events, you know, there's a lot of processes built into our business. So I think we all agree they're really, really important, but not always easy to get right. So for the panel then, guys, let's start at the basics then. How do you define processes in your business, and why are they important? Katherin, do you want to start?
Yeah, of course. So for me, it's pretty easy. Process are the steps and actions that you are taking to deliver your product or service. And I do think that essentially why is this so important is the fact that, yes, your clients, your customers care about your product or your service, but essentially the way how you are delivering it and how you're managing it is impacting significantly their happiness and their thoughts about your product or your service. So.
Okay, very good. Dave, would you have a similar definition for process in your business?
Yeah, similar. I'd say for us, it's all about flow. How does work come in? How does it get from one point to the next? I also look at it as checks and balances, and this is like, I'm a recovering CPA, a chartered accountant. I spent way too many years doing that, but it is about checks and balances and having those, what I call preventative and detective measures to make sure, are you setting the team up for success? And then are you setting up the client for success on the back end of your delivery? So that's how I view process, checks and balances, preventative, detective. Those are kind of my keys.
Very good. Tiara?
Yeah, for me, it's anything you do more than once in your business. So anything that is repeatable, anything in any department, right? Then you should have a process for it. And that sounds overwhelming, but if you kind of bucket, you know, into the different departments, you know, your delivery side, your sales side, and identifying flows for all of those different areas and how they flow into one another, it's really important and it's critical in order to scale.
Very good, very good. Mark?
It's very similar for us. Repeatable processes are something that we observe that we're doing over and over, and we realize like we could make this easier doing it as a process instead of always doing it custom and just, you know, off the shelf every time.
Okay, I'm going to go off piste a little bit. This is something that I didn't, that I haven't shared with you guys. But just could you give the folks in the room an idea of what technology you're using to either put those processes in place or where the processes are stored in your business? Just a quick round robin, let us know what tech you're using to help those processes work. Start with you, Mark, this time.
Yeah, so most of our processes are in Notion, and then we integrate Notion with Asana and Trello.
Yeah, if you've come to any of, well, I'm hosting a workshop under Rachel there, but my big thing is I'm not a big tool girl. I've used them all at larger agencies. I'm in a smaller agency now. We don't have the budget to use all these fancy tools, and process at the end of the day has zero budget when it comes to everything else. So I'm a big fan of Google Sheets, Google Docs, and using your project management tool to leverage whatever you're writing in your SOPs into tasks that can be repeatable and integrated directly into your project management tool, which we use ClickUp.
Okay, great. Dave?
Yeah, we're with ClickUp right now. From a CRM perspective, we're with Salesforce, NetSuite for finance, and that's all new in the last couple of years. And prior to that, we were on the HubSpot, QuickBooks, Asana type tools, and then went through that migration. And if anybody wants to talk about the pains of that, I can give you that rundown.
Yeah, very good. Katherin?
For us, it would be mostly Confluence and Jira. This is our day-to-day. Google Suite in general as well. Harvest, Forecast for time tracking and forecasting the pipeline.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, so let's get into the detail then. And just again, we'll just go around the group. So what specific processes have you put in place that have helped your agency succeed?
I think that one of the most successful processes that we have at our company is the different points of collaboration between different teams that allows us to efficiently indicate if we are able to deliver the product within the timeline or budget that we promised to the client, or if we are not able to do that, we're able to very quickly inform the clients about any adjustments that we'll need to do or suggest some solutions and actions. So I do think that that collaboration in between different teams is something that was very successful and allows the project managers to be more efficient at their work.
Okay, very good. Dave, do you want to go with that one?
Yeah, for us, it's putting in place reports on the back end coming out of our systems to monitor what we call program adherence, which is like, we've said this is the playbook here. Are you following it or not? And that's really been, everything from our sales process. Are you following up on opportunities timely, close dates, all of that sort of quality control through to delivery. But it's for us the process of let's set up a report that we know we're going to get once a week, where we can look at the list, who's on the list, and who we need to follow up on and chase.
Very good, very good.
Yeah, I think for us, the most successful one is all about our estimate process and incorporating more than just the sales team in there. And that really carries over to our allocation planning and utilization planning, which we've gotten down to a science. And it really helps answer the biggest question of knowing when to hire. So I'd say that's the most successful one we've implemented and what everyone always wants to know about.
Okay, very good. We'll come back to that.
The biggest thing for us years and years ago, before Shopify had a GitHub integration, is using version control and really like controlling our release process around code. That makes all of our lives like less stressful because we know exactly what's going to be deployed before it's deployed, and we have like the client sign off. So that's been a big thing of helping me sleep better at night.
Okay, very good. Okay, right. So we'd all talk about the good stuff we're doing, right? Let's talk about the stuff, right? Let's talk about when you're in the weeds, going wrong. So give us an example of a time when effective processes not being in place have negatively impacted your business, and how did you deal with it? Katherin, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think that usually this happens when we are rushing and something needs to be done right away, and we need to quickly deliver whatever that is, whether that's internally or to the client. And I think that the way to mitigate that is to kind of pause for a second and really think through the steps that we need to take into delivering whatever it is that we're asked for. And basically having a retro and understanding why did we not follow the process? Why didn't we have the process for this particular area? And what are the best action items to implement in the future to avoid that?
Okay, okay. Dave, any examples of things going extremely wrong?
Yes, a few, and I mentioned the tech stack already. But besides that one, prior to being at Hawke, I was the CEO of an agency here in Toronto, and we're a performance marketing agency. And we blew through a client's budget because somebody put an extra 0 on the daily budget in Google. And as I said, I was running finance and operations, so I dealt with the financial implications plus the loss of trust with a client. And you do all the good work, you do all the strategy sessions, team's all pumped, excited to launch a campaign, and then an intern does that, and you lose all that good work. So our solution at the time was putting in a simple Google sheet using the tools that are readily available and accessible, where we could monitor and plug that in through a simple data connector pipeline, monitoring that stuff, getting notifications, and then we kind of went a little extreme and built a software to do it. But that's not the first step. The first step is like build the spreadsheet, manual work, and that sort of thing. But yeah, that was an eye-opener because it was one of those examples of a little thing that can cause a big problem. And we didn't have the preventative control or the detective control in place. So we had to put in that process where we could see it and intelligently know like what was going on and what went wrong. Yeah.
Very good. Great example, Tia.
I think for us, and a lot of people can probably relate, that period of time between signature and kickoff, where there's sometimes no process, we made a process out of necessity because I was going to rip my hair out of what is happening, who's on the project, right? When are we going to do an internal kickoff? So after so many went wrong, whether we have an hour before signature to kick off or 2 weeks, which is our standard, defining a process there and saying, okay, get everyone on a call. We just signed the deal. What has to happen, right? And making sure that your technical team is involved in that and your project management team so they can tell you what they need in order to have a successful start. Because if you can't start your project off right, it's just setting yourself up for failure.
Okay. Mark, any horror stories?
Dave, I had a similar snafu where we had a Google Sheet spreadsheet and I didn't sum it totally. So we left out a couple columns, not a whole zero, but it was bad. Bianca had to suffer from that, and it was my fault. But in general, I think getting clients into one of our kind of ideal client profile buckets. Whenever I take on clients and I agree to clients that are outside of that scope, it usually goes wrong, and I usually regret it, and I'm going to stop trying to do that.
Stop being the chief chaos officer. Yeah?
Exactly.
Okay, very good. Okay, so all this great process work that's happening inside the business and inside the teams, right? Let's talk about the clients, right? So how do you convince clients the process is important and get them to buy into all that hard work that you've done in your business? So we start with Mark this time.
Yeah, so I think we've really focused on explaining the value and kind of starting at the end and saying, hey, this is the process that built this great site. You could have a very similar site. Instead of the reverse of that, where they're just like, well, I could do all those steps myself. Like, why are you explaining this process to me? I'm really looking at the value and the return on their investment, and then they buy into the process and say, like, okay, this is a good process because it resulted in X.
Very good, very good. Tiara?
Yeah, I think for us, just, sometimes on the sales side, your CEO who's usually doing the sales is not informing the client of the process and the standards and the boundaries, right? And then the client has no boundaries going into the project. So making sure someone else is on those calls, one, is a good start. But two, don't be afraid early on to let the client know, this is how we work. We don't invite you into Slack, right? Just making it very upfront and known early on. That way the, standard is set and they can make a decision. If it's a deal breaker for them, then sure, we can make exceptions maybe and help build that relationship, but you really want to let them know early on how you operate.
Yeah, for us, it's tying the process back to the results that we can generate through delivery, right? So using the example of when we flow this way, or when we do these steps because, and here's the examples of the clients where we've been able to generate results because of it, and then you say, for the clients that we didn't follow this process, they aren't the case studies, right? So if you want to be a case study and if you want the results, we got to trust the process, to use a basketball term if anybody's from Philly here. But anyways, yeah,
very good.
Trust the
very
process.
Good. Katherin?
For me, it's very similar to everyone else here. We do have, to your point, we do have an orientation meeting with the client before we start the engagement, and we're walking them through all the tools that we're using, all the processes for different phases of the project, or if that's a retainer, how we are going to collaborate with each other on a daily basis. And in the situations where they're confused about why we are doing certain steps, I found it very beneficial to just sit with them and explain to them from our perspective why we're doing that, why do we need to include this step in the process, and how it's going to benefit them at the end of the day, and just basically explaining to them that our goal is for them to be successful. That's the bottom line. And it was
very good. So good communication really seems to be a key thing with the clients. Okay, very good. Okay, I'm going to ask the panelists some specific questions now around conversations we've had. So, Tiara, I'm going to start with you. So talking about this spreadsheet, right? We were at dinner last night and everyone was talking about the spreadsheet, and Tiara's spreadsheet. So explain to the audience today what the spreadsheet is, because this is process on steroids, and everyone's trying to get a hold of this spreadsheet that Tiara's got. So explain to the audience what it's about then and what it does.
Sure, yeah. I don't know why everyone is obsessed with this. Rachel says it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, so you guys can have it. I'll be giving it away for free, but basically it's a project matrix, and it's really nice to step outside of your tool and look at your pipeline demand. If all of your projects that were in the pipeline sold, what would that impact be on your allocation? How could you manipulate and move resources in your current team to make that happen? And through that spreadsheet, I'm able to see all of our active, our utilization and allocation planning, and then what's the pipeline impact there. And I meet with our team weekly to go over this, because it's very true that what happens during a project is different than what you planned in the beginning. So we have the whole team bought in on it. They're comfortable to make changes to that. And it has really helped us with, how to know to answer these two questions. When can we start a project and how long is it going to take? And through this spreadsheet, I'm able to do so much analysis at the end of the month on our utilization reporting, and it's really helped us kind of pivot in our hiring and recruiting and save a lot of time and energy. So,
very good, very good. Sounds great, doesn't it? Form an orderly queue at the end of the session, and Tiara will get your email addresses.
Yeah,
all right?
and your Zelle, you're gonna know information.
Very good, very good. So, I mean, I've learned so much over the last couple of days just being in the room with you guys and girls. It's been incredible, but I was even learning at 12:30 this morning in the bar when Dave and I were having a little nightcap together.
That's when you learn the best. Right? You might not remember it.
And yeah, absolutely. So, but you talked about, Dave, every business needs a glue guy or a glue girl, right? Yeah. So, and I just thought it was incredible. So tell the audience what that concept's about.
Yes, the concept is having somebody that sees things from end to end, starting with the prospecting all the way through to delivery and client retention. At a smaller agency, having it be the managing director or CEO, even if they are chaotic, at least it's somebody. But having that person that sees that full picture and where the pieces connect, I think you mentioned that, is the important role. So I call it the glue guy or the glue girl, just because it's that person that has sort of the answers, or is that oracle, if you will, of information that can make sure the client is ultimately getting what is being promised at the front end of things, because that's where you go wrong. And we heard about importance of retention and stuff. It's the key to have people that see what's being promised and is that matching the expectations. So
very
that's
good.
The glue guy, glue girl.
Very good. And I took that straight onto my team catch up this morning, and I called Tom on my team the glue guy. He was actually very offended, because in Belfast, if you're the glue guy, it means you're abusing solvents. So I had to explain to him that it was actually a term of endearment and a compliment. So now he's the glue guy, and and he's very happy about it. He wasn't for the first 5 minutes, but he is now. so there you go. So Mark, one for you then specifically. How do you balance the need for flexibility and responsiveness to client needs with the importance of having those standardized processes in place and sticking to them?
Yeah, so I've really come full circle on this. My last job was at NASA, which obviously they have a lot of processes, and I was used to following pages and pages of processes. So when I went out on my own, I was like, finally, no processes. I'm free. But over time, I've seen the custom software development kind of morph into more of building on the platforms like Shopify, BigCommerce, and we've seen how the processes can really work as like building blocks, as a foundation for when we're doing builds. So that we have more time to do the custom, elements that's necessary. But having that foundation, when you're like building a house, you don't always want to do all the walls and the foundation custom. You want to do the design, the pretty stuff inside. So that's been like really the journey of like having good processes so that we can do the fun stuff.
Very good, very good. Okay. And Katherin, one for you then. So how do you ensure your team follow those established and standardized processes, and how do you measure whether or not they've been adhered to and identify any issues?
Yes, so first of all, we want to make sure that we have the processes documented in some way and available for everyone to quickly find. So that's the first and the most important thing. What we're implementing is also governance checks. That's how we call it. I know it's not pretty, but every once in a while we're just like cross-checking with the team members / projects if they're following the processes, and if not, why they're not doing it, and like just talking with them specifically. This is actually a very good kind of moment to allow for the space for feedback to team member or to the project team, and try to figure out if the process is actually working, or do we need to adjust a little bit. One thing that I really, really enjoy at our company is something that we call stage gates, where at certain stages of the projects, especially if those are long-term projects, we are kind of creating a meeting where the project team is presenting to the leadership team the current status of the project. They're presenting the current risks. How are they planning to mitigate it? And also, this is a great space for leadership team to kind of dive in deeper into the project and also suggest some updates and changes that may kind of even avoid any risks that we may have in the future. And obviously one-on-ones, just checking with the team members how you are feeling with the new process updates. Is it working for you? Is it working for the rest of the team? Should we adjust anything?
So very proactive, a lot of check-ins, a lot of kind of,
Yes.
yeah, just okay. Very good, okay. Amy, how are we doing for time?
Oh,
We're up, are we?
not
Okay.
doing well.
Oh, okay. We could have gone on all day, but processes go figure, right? So, okay, give the panelists a big round of applause, folks, and thanks very much for your time.
I know where I know you from now.
Where's that?
Miami.
That's it. That's right. Outstanding panel.